But I did want to say, Executive Vice President, General Counsel, I think that means that you're responsible for the Mariners being in first place in the American League West and also taking 2 games from the Yankees in New York for the past couple days. Yes.
Thank you for it's on here. Is it
Yeah,
on?
you got it.
Thank you for acknowledging that. I don't get that acknowledgement, but yeah, we're having an amazing season. Believe it or not, we're almost 1/3 of the way through the season. So it'll be our 50th game of 162 regular, and we're 3 games in first place ahead of the Rangers. So good success. I just want to thank the Chamber for inviting me to have the Mariners present. The enthusiasm in this room is pretty amazing. I do a lot of this, and I don't think I've ever walked into a room and seen this enthusiasm, particularly at 7:50.
Yeah, it's
Congratulations.
It's early and there's good coffee. Yeah, you bet. Love it. Fred, just to kind of set the table with us, could you explain what being Executive Vice President and General Counsel for the team is? What is that job?
Yeah, I'll start with a little organization overview. We're a relatively small business compared to our profile in the community and frankly across the country. We have about 400 full-time employees, and that includes our front office who sell tickets, our marketing and communication group. It also includes our baseball organization, which includes our coaches, our general manager, our statisticians and analysts. So we're a pretty small business, and that means, particularly at the executive level, we are wearing a lot of hats. And I'm sort of, to use a baseball analogy, the utility player. So I oversee the legal department, which is responsible for our contracts and any employment or kind of traditional legal issues that come up. I've got a great staff who does that. I spend most of my time on external affairs, community relations, government affairs, and it's reaching out to the community to make sure the Mariners are very present on a day in and day out basis. It's working with our government elects and our agencies in really a two-way street. How can we support our community, and how can they support what we're doing for our community? So that's a lot of what I do. I also, we've done some real estate development over the last couple of years around T-Mobile Park, and I've led that effort as well, and whatever else, duties as assigned.
That's right. Probably take batting practice when you need to. I like it. We really wanted to talk to you, Fred, because I think you're seeing in this group out here, this is an organization that really supports teamwork in many different ways, and supporting each other through that. And I was thinking about this because we've all seen the Mariners jump in for their happy dance at the end of the games there around second base, which is so great. I wanted to talk about where else does this concept of celebration show up in your organization? Can you share maybe some examples of how the Mariners celebrate individual team successes, how these celebrations contribute to your work environment?
It won't surprise probably most of us that work in baseball are highly competitive. We're attracted to the industry for a particular reason, and most people who are in a front office position, it's at least half of why we join an organization like this is the passion we have for the industry, in this case for the game. And so I think that makes developing teamwork easy, right? Because whether you're responsible for our day of game production, responsible for selling tickets, communication, or finding players to sign, we all come at it with a common passion of winning a World Series.
Yeah.
So we start from there. How do we celebrate? Well, we broke the drought 2 years ago.
Right.
So prior to that, it had been more difficult to find times to celebrate, but also I think it allowed us to enjoy breaking the drought, making the playoffs for the first time more than most teams. We celebrate, micro successes, macro successes, and failures that lead to learnings. Some examples, this Friday we will have, I think will be the 4th or 5th First Place Friday celebration.
There you go.
Every Friday we're in first place. We get together around 10 a.m. and have coffee together and bagels and donuts to just soak in the moment of we're in first place. And yeah, we had a lot of games to go, but at the moment we're in first place, and we're going to enjoy it every way that we can. We celebrate anniversaries. We have a lot of long-term employees in the organization, and we really celebrate that as well. We celebrate milestone events, like when we did the real estate development I mentioned. We had an all-employee event at that real estate development, so everyone could see it, and then be ambassadors for our new business as well.
Right, and I'll talk a little bit more about that dedication in just a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I let people know, I'm going to go through a few questions with Fred here over the next 15, 20 minutes, and if there's some time at the end, I would love to try to get some questions from the crowd out there. We have about 5 minutes, so if you're thinking of some good things to ask Fred about the Mariners or anything along those lines, please think about that. We'll try to make some time for that at the end. I did want to talk about that, though, some of the dedicated members of your organization that have been with the team for decades. I just wanted to talk about that dedication among team members at all levels of the organization. How does that impact efficiency, success when it comes to day-to-day operations?
You know, having long-term employees who know the industry, who know the business, who know what it takes to successfully put on a game. You know, baseball is largely an entertainment industry, and so if you think about every game, you know, 81 plus hopefully playoff games at T-Mobile Park, it's really like a Broadway show. You have music, you have entertainment, and it goes on for over 3 hours from the time the gates open till they close. And so having a set of dedicated people who know to put that production on is so important. On the baseball side, having the knowledge of the game and how to select players, what statistics to look at, how to analyze performance is also important. I think what I've enjoyed, though, is, you know, I've been there almost 8 years. I'm new.
You're the new guy.
I'm the new guy. And it's the infusion of having those dedicated long-term employees with the new thought, and having those dedicated long-term employees being open to new ways to do things, particularly from outside the baseball industry. Baseball, I think most professional sports are very insular, and you know, this is the way we did it in 1960, so we should do it today.
Right.
But bringing in an outside thought from different industries has been really helpful for us, and has I think increased teamwork, increased enthusiasm, excitement, and also successes.
Thank you. And I think a lot of businesses here, there's a lot of small businesses that are represented here, some of them larger too, with hundreds of employees. And I wanted to talk about that whole concept of teamwork, because I think that's crucial to everybody here in terms of running their business. What strategies, I guess, have you put in place to kind of create and build that culture of teamwork, and how do these strategies impact the performance of the organization? I'm talking about on the field and off the field.
I think it starts with having a common understanding of what the organization's mission and goals are, right? So we have a very simple and straightforward mission to win championships, create unforgettable experiences, and serve our communities. And I think to create teamwork, we all have to be aligned to that mission. So if we're making a decision, and this happens in real time, if we're making a decision of whether to go or not go on a particular initiative, you know, we'll pull up the mission and say, this is support our mission. And that creates teamwork by being aligned to what we're doing. Then when you get to the next level, what are our goals for the year? You know, some of our goals, there's obviously the economic goals, there's the on-field goals, but serving our communities is very important. You know, we want to be the most beloved professional sports team in the region. Yeah. So how do we do that? And if we are all aligned around that common goal, if we're transparent with every single employee about this is our goal, you know, this is our mission, and this is how we're going to do it, then we all are aligned on that success. I think what I've seen in other businesses I've been a part of, where there's failure, there's lack of transparency from the top down about what the goals are. You know, what are we trying to accomplish, and everyone is siloed to doing their job without understanding what the top line effort is about.
That's a great observation. And were you in charge of the hot dogs from heaven promotion? I actually wore my hot dog socks today just because I was so excited about that. Did you have anything to do with that? That was one of the coolest things of all time.
Other than having the legal department give a reluctant green light with, you know, sausages falling on the head of some fans, I did not.
Okay, all right, fair. I had to make sure we get that one out there. I did want to talk really about how the Mariners engage with the local community, because again, you're talking with a group here that's all about that, building community and making those connections there. What initiatives have been successful in terms of fostering that kind of community support that I know you're looking for?
Yeah, we are, and it's in multiple ways. You know, I think first of all, it's good business to have positive relationships with our communities. We attract, including our concerts, which we'll have our first one Friday with Billy Joel. You know, we'll have close to 3 million people in T-Mobile Park this year.
Wow.
We'll have graduations. We're going to have dozens of graduations starting in a couple weeks at T-Mobile Park. So it really is a community gathering space, and we have to be open and welcome to the community to make them feel that way. We host nonprofit events, and so you know that's one way is just to be. You know, we had a campaign a couple of years ago. I think we still are part of it of your summer home, right? So think of T-Mobile Park of your summer home, whether it's a game, whether it's a concert, whether it's a graduation, whether it's another event, or you're there for a meeting. We host a lot of business meetings there. We want T-Mobile Park to be your summer home. So that's one way. Two is economically, we want to have as many businesses part of what we do at T-Mobile Park as possible. And that ranges from our procurement services, where you know, we do everything we can to engage small businesses, women and minority businesses, to bring in new vendors constantly. Every year we do a vendor fair, and we welcome new vendors to come and learn about the needs that we have, so they can bid on some of that. And construction, you know, before the 2023 season, which was the All-Star Game season, we did almost $80 million in capital improvements at T-Mobile Park. We did over $40 million this past season, leading into the 24 season. And it's very important to us that we engage with as many different types of contractors, subcontractors, to do the work, right, to expand that economic opportunity. And then the last thing I would say is, you mentioned what we do around access to baseball and softball. You know, we have a nonprofit called Mariners Care, a foundation, and our top pillar is access to baseball and softball. You know, having kids have access to physical activity is just so important, particularly post-COVID, to their mental health. And that, of course, improves all of us, improves all of our communities if we have healthy kids. There was a study that we found, it actually pre-COVID in 2018, that University of Washington and the Aspen Institute wrote about access to play. And you know, it seems simple, go out and play, right? It's not, right? There's huge disparities based on race, ethnicity, and income status where one lives, where kids just don't have the access to a playground. And so, you know, we're very keen on trying to change that narrative.
Right, and building those playgrounds, putting in the dollars to do that, building places like the Mariners Training Center. I was thinking about the one that I covered down there in the Rainier Valley. I think there's a real push, Fred, to have different programs that are out there that are not only just attracting kids, but attracting underserved kids and kids of color. Can you talk about that? Because I think making the game more diverse, more full, more inclusive in that way is a big part of what the Mariners are about too.
It is, and it's as we look at what we want to do in the community, we want to look for areas where we have expertise, right? And we do other things. We have a grant program, and we do other things in our community, but we're a baseball team. And what we can do is use that expertise and that platform to expand access to sports, particularly baseball and softball. So first, you know, as I said, we look at the data. Where are there discrepancies? Some of the discrepancies are obvious. Some are less obvious. You know, one thing that I was surprised about from the study I mentioned is how transportation plays such a critical role in kids having access to sports.
Just getting there.
Yeah. Just getting there. When you combine that with the lack of fields and access in particular urban areas where there are low-income families that are living there, kids just can't play. So we did a partnership a couple of years ago. You mentioned the Mariners Training Center, with a company called EL1 that now has, I think they're up to 9 facilities in the state and in Idaho. It's an indoor facility, which is particularly important in where it rains a lot.
Batting cages, the whole thing. It's a pretty impressive spot.
Exactly, and there's a pay element to it as well. But part of our deal is we insisted that there had to be time for free opportunities for kids to come in and play. And the other part is of different skill levels. You know, I think I have 2 boys that went through the select baseball process, and it's super expensive. They had some skill to play, but there are kids who want to be involved in the game just because they have a passion that stopped playing at 12 years old because that's when Little League ends.
Yeah.
So we are focusing, and we're going to launch a new league next year for 13 and up. That's going to be a 10 to 12 game schedule, very casual play, so all skill levels who just have a passion for the game of baseball or softball can come out and play.
That's amazing. I think there's a hope, Fred, that you're not just making an impact in the game of baseball, but just on the larger community. And I think baseball runs in the blood of America in a lot of different ways. But can you talk about that? Because I think the impact is much bigger than a game, is what I always come back to. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah, I do, and I'm biased. I not only from what I do now, but my background. I played baseball growing up. I played in college, and I went to college only because of baseball. So
Where'd you go to school?
I went to a junior college, Santa Monica College.
Oh, there we go.
And then Cal State Northridge. I grew up in Los Angeles.
Yep, go Quakers.
But for the game, I would have not had mentors. I think about my coaches. I wouldn't have lifelong friends that I still keep in touch with that were teammates. I wouldn't have learned teamwork. I wouldn't have the lessons of resiliency. We lost a lot of games. I lost a lot of games. I was a pitcher.
Oh, boy.
And all of those things that I would have never experienced but for the opportunity to play the game. So I come in it with that lens, and how can we, in very simple ways, allow kids to gain those experiences of teamwork, of friendship, of resiliency, of mentorship. We also spend a lot of time and effort on developing coaches so that they can be successful and not just on the field skills, but beyond that. So I think all high tides raise all boats. If we can get our kids involved in baseball, softball, and the Sounders are doing it with soccer, and the Seahawks launched a flag football program. So it's not just us, it's really the entire sports community. If we can get kids engaged, get active, it's going to help our entire community.
Agreed, and I have seen that definitely across all different sports, that there's a real effort to engage more communities, especially younger communities and kids of color as well. But I wanted to keep going down that path, if I could, and talk about maybe emerging trends. When you talk about the intersection of sports and business, and how the Mariners might be preparing for this. I don't know if you're going to start talking about AI, but that's something I always worry about and think about. Help me out with this, in terms of emerging trends for sports and business, how those are coming together, and what the M's are preparing for.
Yeah, AI, I think we like all businesses, how will it impact it? What are the ethics behind it? What are the quality controls behind it? Are things we're dealing with no different than most businesses? I think one of the most significant trends and what we're keeping an eye on is how people are consuming the game, right? People come to the game and it's a great experience. You watch the game, you thank friends and family. That hasn't changed, right, for over 100 years. But how they watch it on their devices as opposed to a TV, streaming as opposed to cable and satellite, in 15-minute increments instead of a 3-hour game. So we, Major League Baseball and the other sports teams, but Major League Baseball more so, we have 162 regular season games. Hockey, basketball, they have 82 games. NFL has 17 plus playoffs, 18 this year.
Yeah.
So we have the most product of any professional sports team. How can we keep our fans, and particularly the younger fans, engaged? And so there's a lot of thought around that. We also own Root Sports, which is the regional sports network, and how can we make that available as under the current economic system. Those are all things I think are top of mind.
Yeah, and I wanted to, if I could, we have just a couple of minutes here. Are there any questions in the crowd for Fred before we wrap up here? Anything at all? Any hands out there? Anybody thinking baseball? We're all so excited about the Mariners being in first place. It looks like there might be one question back there, and maybe I can just toss this microphone. I'll just walk over to Whitney. Why not? I'm not going to throw it, no. The lovely and talented Whitney Moore had a question from Electric Butter Marketing.
Just curious, how do you pick who will be throwing out these ceremonial first pitch?
Because Fred's in charge of that, probably. Yeah, what do you got?
Do you have a nomination in mind?
I think she nominated herself.
Yeah.
That That would be great. Yeah, we'd support that.
We actually sometimes have more than one.
That's true.
We'll have more than one ceremonial first ditch. There's a bunch of reasons why. We do a lot of celebrations. We're doing Asian American, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander celebrations this month, and we'll have a number of people from that community. We have sponsors that sometimes do it. I just had emails last night. It's actually, believe it or not, this is the 25th anniversary of T-Mobile Park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, the year two.
Yeah,
coming right up on it.
July, I think it's July 18th.
Remember that first All-Star game? You bet. Yeah, back in the day.
So we're having a 25th anniversary celebration in June, and we'll have somebody special. So whole variety of reasons, and sometimes it is that just somebody sends me an email or somebody sends someone else an email. Hey, I know so and so. An example is I had a former colleague at the law firm I was at was retiring, and they asked, is there any way he could do it? And so he did the first ceremonial, and he was a veteran. And so we were celebrating veterans on that particular day, and he threw out the first pitch.
That's awesome. That is great. Any other quick questions for Fred before we move on? Happy to take any other thoughts out there. Great question though, Whitney. I wanted to know that too. All right. Connor had one. Let me walk his way. Excuse me.
You talked about the economic investments you guys have been doing in the stadium. Is there anything that's coming up that the public, we could get a sneak peek on or something like that?
Inside, two answers. One, in our lease with the Public Facility District owns the ballpark, so it's a publicly owned ballpark. We have a lease. The lease requires that we are one of the 10 best ballparks in Major League Baseball. So every year we go out and tour 3 or 4 of what we consider the top 10 to make sure that we're within that bucket. So we are constantly upgrading it, and as well as maintaining it. Kind of two ideas, right? Changing the seats is maintenance. Adding a new fan amenity such as a club space or the Trident deck. We're always going to be doing that, so that's interesting. Outside the ballpark, we opened a new development a year and a half ago called the Box Yard. We have a restaurant, we have an event space, and we have a brewery called Steelheads. I think that neighborhood of Soto has tons of opportunity, particularly in a city that needs housing. There's no housing and it's not allowed there. So I think there's some great opportunity not only for that, but also additional businesses that can be supported by what the 2 stadiums have to offer.
Wow, there's a lot going on there. Folks, we're going to wrap it up at this point. Can we give a big round of applause for Fred Rivera?